Okay, so two separate decks that we'll work through today. So again, Insight Plus, new Tempus module, talk about the licensing stuff. This is really the culmination of over a year's worth of effort to implement and deliver the most capable business intelligence and reporting capability on the market, right? So we're really proud of what we've done here. The goal, the aim of implementing Insight Plus was to address three core capabilities that we wanted to achieve. I believe we've far exceeded those, and I think you'll see today that is not an exaggeration. The first was just advanced dashboarding reporting. So really interactive dashboards, streamlined, really good looking, no limits on the number of sub-reports that could be embedded in the dashboard, and giving our end users, clients, as many ways to display the data as they wish. So that was the first goal. The second was to implement report-based delivery. We've been getting that feedback for years. We want reports sent to these people or these groups, either on demand or at predefined intervals. And that's also part of Insight. So reports can be delivered to anybody, excuse me, inside of your organization, either individual cards, so the sub-elements of the reports, or the entire dashboards. They can be sent again on demand or as part of a recurring schedule. And the third was report-based alerting. So how do we use reports to tell us things we don't know? Many of you have weekly, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, end of month, whatever meetings where you go through reports and what if analysis to look for and uncover issues and challenges and so on. But what we wanted to do was get more predictive and allow reporting to tell us when we should do something. So you're all very, very busy people. How do we enable Tempus to tell you when something has gone, haywire, or when something has breached a key guardrail, or when there's a challenge that you should probably look at, or an issue? And you'll see this a little bit later as we get into Insight. Is this report-based alerting allows you to implement business logic of your preference and your choosing, using your Tempus data or other data, which is really cool. You'll see that in a moment, which is again another area I think we exceeded expectations. And then determine what messaging is sent, when it is sent, and who does it go to. And you can set up basic calculations. There's statistical calculations. You can do basic inequalities. You can look at rates of change, and we'll drill into that in more detail. But a very powerful capability to keep you informed of what's happening without having to be in Tempus reports and Insight Plus reports constantly. All right, so these were the three key and most critical elements of delivering, and I think we've, again, gone well beyond this, as you'll see in today's presentation. So we're going to start with the basics, and these still get pretty advanced. There's a lot of stuff here that we're super, super proud of, and again, I'll jump back and forth between slides and the live instance here in a moment, but let's start with the basics. And again, there's going to be a ton of content. There will be many additional sessions, both overviews of what Insight Plus is, all of its capabilities. We will be doing ongoing training sessions, just educational. So like a session on how do I create a card? How do I create a custom data set? How do I build out a dashboard? And we'll be doing those for well into the foreseeable future, educating the current community and of course everyone else that'll be joining the community over time. So there'll be a lot of that happening. There'll be a lot of content in the Help Center. And of course, you'll have this recording and the PowerPoint decks as well. So if I'm going through a lot of stuff and it's challenging maybe to follow along, that's okay. There'll be plenty of opportunity to catch up. And of course, if you need a one-on-one session with us, by all means, please reach out. So with Insight Plus enabled, there will be a new tile on your Tempus homepage called the Insight Plus. There will be color-coded a little bit differently. But this will be the portal into accessing all the Insight Plus functionality. This and the reports can be shared with anybody in the organization, but the actual editing and design of reports is limited inside of Tempus. Right? So they have to be a Tempus user to do that type of work. So as we drill into Insight Plus, this opens up a huge volume of capability. So all of those really fancy dashboards that you're trying to achieve, we can now not only address, but probably exceed those expectations. And another goal underlying those three that I mentioned earlier was how do we help you, our clients, avoid having to engage third parties or other groups internally to build out advanced dashboards? How do we help you avoid having to go through the process of finding a data scientist or a Power BI specialist or a Tableau specialist and so on, and instead just do all of that work and do it more effectively and more capable with more capability directly inside of Tempus. So you'll see a number of reports today and a number of dashboards today. We'll build some, but there'll be many, many more on the site, and of course more content made available. But the key here was, how do we expand the number of controls? How do we add interactivity? These dashboards will allow for drill through and drill down. So drill down is really simple. It's just you click on one of the individual report card titles. It'll take you into a window where you can explore the report, and you'll see a ton more on that in a moment. But also drill through. So if we had a listing of projects or maybe a global map, and we click on a country or click on a project name, that can drill through into a sub-report that maybe renders all the information for a portfolio, a program, a project, a resource, a region, a strategy. So all of that simply leverages your existing setup in Tempus to then visualize things much, much more effectively than really ever before, right? So really the boundaries you're gonna run into here are just your imagination. What you need to display, I can undoubtedly tell you there's gonna be no limit. In fact, we'll walk through the 100+ controls that are available, and there are new ones added, on a, let's say, a quarterly basis. There may be some changes and new controls that get added, but they're very interactive, and you shouldn't have any issues visualizing really whatever you'd like to visualize. All right. Now the dashboards themselves are really a collection of sub-reports. In Insight Plus, we call these cards. Each card is its own report. So while yes, you can build very sophisticated and complex dashboards or keep them really simple, like you could just have a sort of a HTML table as your dashboard. But they're made up of these individual cards, and each card itself is its own very richly formatted and very capable report. So while you can, again, assemble complex dashboards, you could just go to your inventory of cards to drill into specific reports that require maybe a visualization that we can't yet or can't do today. Bubble charts, funnel charts, targets, you name it, those are all going to be here. And you can create an unlimited number of dashboards. You can also create an unlimited number of cards. And also on the dashboarding side, something that's come up in the past from the community has been our existing dashboard functionality. We can only put in up to 4 sub-reports. With Insight Plus, you could have 400 sub-reports. There's really no real limit other than what's usable to you. And there's also scrolling built in. So you could scroll through pretty much all of your cards if you wish to in a predefined dashboard, right? So tons of functionality here, part of the basics. Now, in addition to supporting visualizations, whether they're graphs, tables, you name it, Insight Plus supports other content that can be embedded inside of a dashboard. So visualizations is likely where 90+% of activity and content will be embedded. But we also support document cards, which are basically embedded documents, embedded presentations, embedded photos, videos, and images. A notebook functionality where you can actually capture information inside of the dashboard, as well as polling information. So if you wanted to attach a survey for anyone that's viewing the dashboard about something, maybe it's something about your strategy or something about your projects that are around the globe. Maybe it's a questionnaire about a business process that supports a strategy or an underlying business process. That polling can be embedded directly inside of your dashboard, and that information is then centrally collected, and the end users can actually see the results of their polling in real time, so they can see all the others that are submitting. We won't go into a lot of detail on that functionality today, or really anything other than visualization, but we will have, of course, have separate sessions where we go into much more detail on each one of these. Now, in terms of the data available, out of the gate, all of your Tempus information, all of your Tempus data are available. And we'll walk through in a moment how you actually create these cards. And you'll see it's a wizard-based process that starts with sort of, what are you trying to put in place? Is it a visualization? And then what is the data that you want to use? In most cases, you'll use this option of existing data. And this is where we have our predefined Tempus data sets. We spent a lot of time making sure that we have a range of data sets here to accomplish the most basic to the most sophisticated. And this is an area that we can continuously build out. We can add customized data sets if needed. We can augment this with machine learning or artificial intelligence routines if you needed those, or even you can do that if you'd like. It would require a bit of our assistance to make sure it's set up correctly, but if you had your own logic around machine learning that you'd want to own and maintain, that can be done here as well. You'll see we have things ranging from project financials to resource capacities to simple resource lists to simple project lists. And we have a variety of additional data sets that are essentially recipes or cookbooks for more complex outputs. So some of the calculations that we've seen customers develop either custom with us or we'd envision would be useful, things like measuring concurrency, measuring flow rate, measuring allocation levels over time in very specific ways for visualization purposes to make it easier, are pre-assembled for you. And there's quite a bit here, but if you wanted to build a simple report of give me a list of projects, we can do that. Or if you wanted to build something much, much more sophisticated, those recipes are pre-built for you and they simply have to be bound to the visualization that you're looking for. So this is the standard set of data that come across based off of your Tempus information or Tempus data. There are other options, however. So this makes this solution, Insight Plus, so much more powerful, is that if you have additional data, whether they are lookups, cross-reference tables, maybe secure information around rates, salaries, financials, maybe targets for things, or other data sets that don't necessarily fit into Tempus for a few reasons. One, maybe you don't want to provide those users with licenses. Maybe it's organized differently. For whatever reason, you have data in a separate spreadsheet. Those can be uploaded into Insight Plus. They're secured and separate from the end users, so they wouldn't have access. But you can now leverage those data in reporting, in dashboards, and also for calculations. So if you needed to develop a custom data set or implement a custom data set using Tempus data and an Excel file, that can be done directly through Insight Plus. If you don't have the Excel file, you can actually build, using this online data editor, you can actually build a table through the web interface and actually input that information or copy and paste it into Insight Plus. So this lets you augment your Tempus data with external information or external data sets, making it massively more powerful in the types of outputs it can apply. Now, extending that even further, another source you have access to is you can connect to external data sources and federate those information or those data with your Tempus data. So we have a connect to live data setup where we have over 500 connectors to external enterprise systems. I'm showing just a handful of these: Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, Azure AD, Azure SQL, the list goes on, and a variety of other enterprise systems. So if you don't plan to do integration directly into Tempus via the API or orchestrator or however you wish to develop it, you can integrate the data with Tempus data for the purpose of reporting. And many of the integrations that we wind up working through or our clients work through are really focused on integrating the data to present one clear picture, not necessarily integrating those data from SAP or elsewhere directly into Tempus fields or into Tempus data sets, but instead a mechanism to bring them together for visualization purposes, maybe for developing targets, comparisons, and so on. And this can satisfy that requirement. Again, over 500 connectors, you'll be hard pressed to not find what you need to connect. So this, again, further establishes this capability and extends it markedly. All right, so now we're going to move on to creating cards. I promise I'm going to actually go into the product here in a moment. We'll go through a few more, and then I'll jump into live Insight Plus. Now, creating cards, so remember, that's sort of the foundational element of building your dashboards. You first create these various cards from the data sets, from an Excel upload, from a third-party system that you've synchronized, and then you assemble a card. You visualize it. Is it a bar chart, a pie chart? Is it data science control, whatever? You'll see that there's over 100 of them, so you'll have plenty of time to figure out how you want to visualize. A really nice feature, though, is that it's going to make recommendations. So once you implement a card, there's a little button you can click, and Insight Plus will tell you, hey, based on the data set, based on how you're currently rendering it, here are a dozen or so different displays that might be relevant to you. It's super helpful, especially for those of us that are not, data scientists that know every possible combination, if something like that exists. But if you wanted to see, well, what looks better, and is there a better way to uncover and display the data and tell a better story, Insight Plus will help you with that. All right, so creating a new card, very simple. So inside of Insight Plus, there's a little plus icon in the top right corner. You'll select what are you looking to add. In this case, it's a visualization. And then you're going to choose the data that you wish to use. Today, and in most cases, you're going to focus exclusively on existing data. Those will be the Tempus data sets that are immediately served up inside and through this wizard inside of Insight Plus. Now, once you've done that, it'll drop you directly into the Insight Plus integrated development environment. 100% web-based. There's no client-side installs, nothing to manage, no desktop installs, nothing like that. But you do have a very sophisticated integrated development environment presented directly through the web with a range of different options, ranging from data explorers, viewing the data tables, filter and sorting, the properties for the various graphs and charts you may use. And in some of these, we'll have like hundreds of properties, others may have dozens. It's pretty spectacular, the amount of configuration options you'll have, ranging from color coding to data labels to data legends and other functionality that you'll see in a moment. Color rules, of course, the various chart types, tooltips, custom calculations, and even custom segments. So you can group custom field values with sort of custom segments inside of the reports themselves, another really powerful capability. Now, in here, you're going to design the card. We'll do it live in a moment using all these various options. And then you'd simply save it out. Again, off on the right, you'll see the various charting types. You can hide that or display it. And there are over 100 different types. Now, at the risk of putting you all to sleep, I do have slides for each type. I'll rip through them really quickly, and then we'll jump in and create a brand new card. Now, these are grouped, the various chart types are grouped by sort of loosely by a type, right? So we have period over period type displays, which you have running totals, variance bar lines, line bars, and so on. There are vertical bars, ranging from really simple bars to waterfall displays. Those are quite useful in visualization. Running total stack bars, line plus stack bars, overlay bars. We have the same from the horizontal perspective, which also serves up a range of custom Gantt style displays. So if you wanted to draw a Gantt that brings together different data elements that we can't yet view in Tempus in either any of our Gantts or even the upcoming roadmap functionality that we'll talk about in the second hour of today's session, which is going to be a really powerful feature. But if you wanted to draw your own Gantts using different data from Tempus or from elsewhere, that's also achievable using these horizontal bar displays. There are line style charts. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Lollipop style charts, area charts, right? Stacked area, horizontal stacked, step, and so on. A range of data science reports. So your scatter, your bubble charts, vertical box plot, the statistical process control chart is quite useful, as well as the forecasting charts, which we've used for some machine learning type stuff that we've done behind the scenes to forecast the likelihood of projects being completed and other factors, right? So these can be used very widely, especially as you and or us start to roll out more AI and machine learning components to serve up your data in more meaningful ways. Pie and funnel displays. Obviously, we're in a project-driven system. The funnel chart is massively useful, especially showing us what stages the projects are in based off of workflow state, maybe just a project state or program state related field. And you can color code those as you wish and draw those sections based off of different factors, maybe off of fields, or draw their size off of the total amount of work, total allocation, total cost, approved budget, whatever it may be. Maps, so many of you are globally distributed. This has been one of the first questions asked in many of our pre-release demos was how can I draw where I have issues globally, and we absolutely have mapping controls that are global or for specific countries to identify where projects are happening, where there may be issues, where there are over allocations. All of that can be surfaced through these mapping style controls. Gauges, shapes, faces, radial dials, progress bars, they're all here. Of course, the big giant single value thing with background coloring, that's all here as well. Tables and text boxes. You know, for quite some time, customers have asked us, I want a table. I don't want a pivot style report. I just want a flat table. So now that's super easy to achieve. You drag the table in, you drag and drop the various columns that you want inside the table. In fact, we can take that as one of the examples as we walk through creating these. Slicers and filters, again, all built in, range-based, radio button selectors, date, slicer, checkbox. What's also really nice is in the dashboards, the data sets that are connected, as you click on a sub-element or a data series, those that are connected will auto-filter based off of your selection. So imagine you're drawing everything by strategy and you click on strategy 1. All of the other controls will update based on that filter value. You don't even have to put a slicer or a filter into the dashboard. There's also range or time-based slicers in the reports themselves as well. So if you click and drag, the report will focus in on just that range and implement that filter across all of the connected reports. And then we have sort of the others, things that don't naturally fit elsewhere. Word cloud is one that we see there might be quite a bit of interest in. Radar style charts, sunburst, high-low, calendar display. If you wanted to draw anything from Tempus in a calendar, that's now supported, and that calendar is very configurable. Day views, week views, month view, quarter, and so on. And you can also, while we have roadmap plans for more fiscal period integration into Tempus, that's underway, you can draw separate fiscal periods inside of Insight Plus, and we'll likely be doing a session just on how to do that alone. All right. Additional functionality inside of the card creation, we support color rules that can be based off of various field values or off of complex calculations. You'll see in a moment, I believe it's actually the next slide here, we have a very complex, shouldn't say complex, a sophisticated custom calculation engine. So you can use any of the fields from a data set and then essentially generate outputs using a range of various functions, case statements, if statements, counts, and we'll see a number of those when we jump into an example here. And let's go to dashboard. Okay, so enough of me blabbing here. Let's jump into an instance of Insight. So I'm in one of my test environments here, and you can clearly see here's Insight Plus. Hopefully my time, I haven't timed out here since I've been talking so long. We'll click on Insight Plus, and this is going to take us into the Insight Plus portion of Tempus. And you can now see my default page here. There's also a pinnable side menu that lets me navigate through my favorites, those that I've shared with others, as well as an overview that shows me all of the cards that I've created. And then down below, the various dashboards that I've designed, as well as if there are any that have sub-dashboards, like I will show you in this case, a project dashboard that drills down into a project-specific dashboard. So imagine a list with a drill through capability. We'll be doing many more of these, and I'm hoping we'll have a gallery page on the website where you can see all sorts of visualizations. Now on the screen, you'll see again a variety of cards that I've pre-assembled. We'll spend time in a moment, a little bit later in the presentation, drilling into each one to show you the various options that are available. But to create an entirely new card, what we'll do is select the plus icon, and we'll go to create new card. Now, at this point, this begins the wizard process, and we'll have separate sessions on how do we create polls and notebooks and so on. But let's start with visualization, and we'll select that. And now we'll choose, well, what data do you wish to use? So this is where we have those other options I talked about. But again, in almost every case, you're going to select existing data. It's like someone's audio. And anyone on the Prosymmetry side, can you just go ahead and make sure you mute your microphone? Thank you. Okay, so now I can select from the various Tempus data sets that are part of Insight Plus, and you'll see a number of them. But let's start with something simple. Let's look at just a project data set, and we'll select Choose Data Set, and that's going to drop us into our development environment. Now you'll notice the layout here includes the various dimensions and totals. That's under the Data tab. We have our filters and sorting options. That's Filter and Sort. We have the control properties, which is this menu here. We have the actual design surface for what the report will look like, and then we have our chart types off to the far right. Now, from this pick list, you'll see all of those various types of reports that I showed in the presentation earlier. So something as simple as a table report. Maybe we pick this this mega table, and you'll see there's various table types: flex tables, HTML, heat maps, and so on. And let's just pick the mega table, which includes a range of sorting and filtering and grouping options. And you'll see various columns are just auto-inserted for you. That's just to help you get started. You can absolutely change these out. So let's just get rid of these, and we'll just keep the project name, which is here. And I'll show you how we add more fields in a moment. But then we'll click on Run Preview, and this will bring back what the report is going to look like. Now you'll notice each card will also have not only a name and description, but it will have a time element in the far right, which you can hide or enable, and it will also have a summary statistic in it as well. So currently I'm seeing the sum of estimated total cost, which is around $7 million, but I could tell it I don't want to see this, or I want to see something else, a specific value, a specific calculation, a different aggregation, or we can just hide that number entirely, right? Now in the report, you're seeing a list of projects, and perhaps I want some additional fields. Now, off on the far left, under the Data tab, you'll see our dimensions and our measures, as well as the ability to add calculated fields. Now, if I click on Calculated Fields, you'll see my pop-up here. I can provide this with a name, and then build my formula using any of those fields that are part of the data set, and then you'll see this wide range of different functions for doing calculations. Case statements, min, max, if type statements, substrings. So any and all type of manipulation we'd expect you to perform, those are available here, and you can build complex statements similar to almost like a SQL style calculation. And then this field becomes available for use in your reports. So even if you wanted to do something, maybe a complex multi-criteria scoring exercise, or you wanted to look at the separate data and join them together from a separate upload, or just doing simple if statements to come up with different outcomes for the purpose of formatting the reports, those would all be fully supported. Now, adding columns, really simple. So maybe you want to add something like, let's search for a field project. Can't type here. How about, let's see, project business unit. We'll just drag that in. All right, we'll run that preview. And now we see the project business unit. You can, if you wish, alter the label of the column header. So this is currently project business unit. Maybe we just want to call it BU. And then we can apply additional formatting if we wish, justification, text style. Let's go ahead and run the preview. And there's now our BU. So really simple to assemble these tabular style reports. Again, under properties, you'll see a wide range of options: general, sorting, the header row. Perhaps you want to add some color coding. So header fill, let's do something like, how about a light green? We'll go ahead and hit run preview, and now we'll see what that looks like. Right, so really simple to assemble a table style card. And now what we'll do is, let's just call this projects with BU. So I'll come back and remove this later. We'll go ahead and save. And now when we exit out of here, we're going to see in our listing, there's our new projects with BU. Now, again, in the future, under this overview section, I don't have to do a dashboard to start. I could just go to projects with BU, run that report live, and here it is. And in a moment, we'll spend time drilling into this in more detail, because there are a huge range of options for how we interact with the report at runtime. Right, so you'll see a range of options up here, and we'll talk through some of these that are going to be massively useful. Now, let's head back to overview, and we'll create one more card, and I want to do something more graphical. So let's do maybe like a pie chart type of thing. So again, we'll start with a visualization, existing data. Again, to keep things simple, I'll select project. There's far more capable data sets here. your time-phased allocation information, time-phased financials, time-phased capacity, timesheets, skills, all of that are here. All of those are here. But again, for demo, I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to be selfish. So let's choose projects again. And in this case, let's do something. Let me move GoToWebinar again. Let's do maybe something like a pie and funnel. And let's do a funnel. And what we want in the funnel is I want to group these by, so we'll make the size as like the total estimated cost, but it could be the total allocation levels, whatever they are. But in terms of the grouping sections, let's use like the stage or the state. So let's go filter again for project stage. Do we have something like that about state? Project workflow state, or I think we have phase. Let's use phase. Much better. All right. So let's do current phase. We'll drag in current phase and we'll preview this. There we go. So now I have the project data. There's, again, $7 million worth of cost. And you'll see as I hover, I get additional details. And what we've implemented here is as interactive a charting element as possible. If you click on something, it's going to highlight, it's going to give you information, and also, again, enable filtering across various controls. So right now I've got this stacked, again, by the phases, but notice it looks like it's kind of out of order. So for this, what we can do is implement our sorting. So let's use current phase in sorting. And we can say, well, we want this in descending order. Let's go ahead and apply that on our preview. There we go. So now we go from 4 at the top to 3 to 2 to 1. You'll see the actual value here, the percentage of the total, and you can manipulate this. You can change this. Maybe you don't want a legend. Maybe you want to change the colors, the number format, the hover text settings. Again, a huge volume of chart-related properties. Now let's call this project funnel current phase, right? And then we'll go ahead and save. Let me move this again and hit save. All right. So now when we exit out again, back on my overview, here's my new project funnel chart. So creating these cards, very straightforward. You can get very sophisticated and really get into the guts here and sort of, the far edge of capability, or we can stay really simple and do something like, give me just a count of projects in one cell or in one big chunky, graphical element, or give me projects by country or by phase or location. The same for resources and allocations. So you can stay very simple, but you can also get off the chart sophisticated if you wanted to go that direction. All right, so that's how we create cards using your Tempus data inside of Insight Plus. All right, and again, there'll be lots more that we'll share on how we do that. Now, the next set of steps I'd like to walk through is how we actually create the dashboard. So the hard part is assembling the cards, and you saw that was actually pretty simple to do. The next step is how do we bring them all together in sort of a collection? And we do that using dashboards. Now, dashboards, you're really just kind of creating a page. So really simple, in the bottom left corner of Insight Plus, there's going to be an option that says Manage Dashboards. From there, you would select Add Dashboard and give it a name. And you can also create sub-dashboards. So as I demo in a little bit, the actual drill through capability, you'll see that's a really simple process. You're basically doing a parameter that you're passing into all of the controls on the sub-page. And again, we'll drill into that. So creating a dashboard, really simple. And then the next step in this process is dragging and dropping different content onto the dashboard itself. You can change the colors, you can change displays, you can add a header, you can drag in images, you can drag in line separators. You can actually ask it to make recommendations for layouts. And some of them get wildly sophisticated. So it's up to you. I usually start with a base one like this and I just drag things around. Once they've been added, you can resize each individual element. You can click and drag them around. So it's really dynamic and optimized for various screen sizes and even mobile as well. So we drag and drop to actually create the dashboard. And then you have options to move things around, and you'll see this live in a moment. So I can click on the various edges, I can move the controls around. Each will also have an appendix. So if there's certain controls you don't think fit, you want to kind of add them as supporting attachments, they can actually be added at the very bottom in an appendix section of the dashboard, which is actually quite helpful. It's almost like bringing something up from like the minor leagues if you determine that that control becomes more useful based on a discussion or the consumers and their feedback. And a really cool use case is you can actually ask people for their feedback on the dashboard itself using the polling functionality. Again, I suspect we'll do a session on that at another date, but you could ask, is this dashboard relevant? If you're going to improve, what would you do? So you can ask those questions directly inside of the dashboard itself to collect feedback from the end users, and they can see what others are responding as well as a sort of a summary view inside of the dashboard. So we can click and drag and move things around, and there's so much more, but let's actually jump into that. So let me go back to the same instance. So remember, we created a handful of these. We had a project list, project funnel. I've got some others here: project count by strategy, waterfall, a health indicator, a global map showing us where the projects are based on their like a country value, projects by country in a pie or a donut chart, right? So I mean, we can just add to this indefinitely. But let's click on Manage Dashboards in the bottom left corner. This gives us a pop-up, and from here you can also hide dashboards, but let's go ahead and add one, and we'll say this is Insight plus demo, and we'll go ahead and save, and then we'll go ahead and hit done, and there's our Insight plus demo. Now when I first click on it as the owner, it's going to give me this little image to tell me this is where we tell our story. Now you can ask Insight Plus to give you sort of layout recommendations, or you can just click on Edit Dashboard. And from Edit Dashboard, can I move this off the screen? There we go, much better. There's lots of options here on the right. So one, we can add a header. So we'll go ahead and drag that on so we can add a title. We'll say this is Insight Plus Demo Dashboard. We can then add in or ask for various layouts. So you can drag these layout options on, or I'm going to leave that off for now. You can drag your various cards onto the surface. You can drag images onto the surface. Those can be URL addressable. They could be local files get uploaded. We can add text, so entire sections if you wanted to add detailed descriptions. And then, of course, borders. So let's add a border directly underneath Insight Demo. And now what we'll do is drag in our various cards. So let's add to the surface, and we'll pull from an existing card. So how about projects by country? So that gets added, but right next to it, I want that funnel that I created. So let's drag directly to the right, and I will add one of our funnels. Let's see where that guy went. Project funnel, what was that one? Current phase, I think we created another one. There we go. Let's add that one. And there's our current phase project funnel. Now, I can move these things around. I can change their sizing and their scale. By moving, you can very easily click and drag to move things around. We could add additional cards directly beneath this. So now let's add maybe that table that we put together, global project list. That might have been the one, or maybe we called it something else. Yeah, I think global project list. How about that? We'll add global project list as well. There we go. And this has some color coding embedded. Actually, one that I created separately, but in any case, we're just dragging and dropping. And that's it. So I've now created a dashboard. Now you could do this for the next week. Like you could sit here for 100 hours and move this around, change this. Each of these cards, as they're inserted into the dashboard, you can choose what's displayed. Am I hiding the title? Let's hide the time frame, and let's hide the summary, and we'll keep that. We can adjust color coding. Do I want to change the background color? Let's make the background color of this one gray. Let's make the background color of this one something else. We'll make this one yellow. So you could sit here with formatting, with layouts, with various, again, text inserts, modifying cards indefinitely. There's that much power. And for the dashboard itself up top, again, you'll find more options. Do I want to change the entire background of the dashboard to a light blue? This is going to be absolutely hideous. Let's go back to white. So you could make something as pretty or as horrible as you wish, and then we'll hit save. Right. So now we've saved our dashboard. Now we're going to spend more time on this in a moment, but a really cool feature you'll notice as I click on anything, it is interactive. And you'll also notice, so in this case, if I click Thailand, notice it's connected to these other reports to the right and to the bottom. Now, currently, it's not showing anything in the report below. There's no data in the filtered range. But again, you have cross-report or cross-card filtering built in automatically, or it can undo any of the filters that I put in place. So as you're interacting here, the filtering will apply. So let's click maybe Barcelona phase 13. That is now adjusting these reports above. So Barcelona phase 13 is in the US and it's in phase 3. And I can see it represents $50,000 of total estimated cost. And it's, again, geographically, it's purely in the United States. So this interactivity between the reporting cards, hugely beneficial and hugely useful. And of course, I can clear those as needed. All right, let's go back to slides. Now, interacting with the cards, as I mentioned, I did a little bit there, but there's so much more. So any of the cards inside of a dashboard or from the overview section can be clicked on to drill down one level. And as you can see on this screen capture, and we'll do this live in a moment, I can click on this projects by country to drill into the report in more detail. Or we could have started on the overview page. So you can drill into these from different perspectives. Beyond drill down, if you click on any element within the data series itself, so in this case, in this screen capture, I'm clicking just on Thailand, you'll drill down further into the actual records themselves. So if there's ever a question of what are those 53 projects, or what are those, whatever that total is, there's 5 projects. What are they? And give me more detail. Live, I click on it without any configuration, drills through into the underlying data that support that particular element of that data series. There's also, as I mentioned earlier, this report recommendation feature. So if you drill down into a specific report card, there's a little icon that looks like a pie chart in the top right, and it will present to you, Insight Plus will present to you various reporting recommendations. So in this case, I started with a pie. It's recommending a variety of bar charts, line charts, funnel charts, gauges, word cloud, and so on. So these can be super helpful in making recommendations and giving you ideas that you may not have had. I use this all the time. It's hugely beneficial. I'm pretty simple. I start with a donut, and then as usual, and then I ask it, well, what's a better way to look at it? And it's pretty intelligent. It gives me good recommendations that I may or may not implement in the card, which eventually feeds into the dashboard. You can also, within any individual card, send the report via email, print it, export it to Excel, or export it to CSV. We'll drill into more of this stuff as we move along. And you can also set up, if you wish, an email distribution. So these can be sent on demand. So as I'm running it, I type in and send it now. Or like as you're seeing here, I can set up a scheduled process where this will get sent out once a week, once a month, whatever it may be. These are still separate from the built-in alerting, where if something changes here, according to my business logic, let me know. This is just, hey, send the report to these people or groups of people as needed and based on the recurrence pattern that I establish. Separately, there is a sub insight functionality here running behind the scenes using some really cool technology. So as you drill into any individual card, off on the right, if you're using quick filters, those are there as well. But there's a separate insight tab that gives you details of the underlying data. So this is learning. It's telling you what are the outliers, what are the averages, the min and max. And as you work with a more complex data set, you get more complex insight. And this is something we'll explore in separate sessions over time, but there's a lot more under the hood here, working to give you more insight into the data through, no pun intended, Insight Plus. Okay, so let's, I've got to get a move on here. We've got so much to cover, and as feared, I probably won't get through everything. But let me jump into this global delivery dashboard I put together earlier. And this one's got the map control. And notice as I click on the map up top, this is just so cool. As I click on the US, the various control down below. So like projects by country is updating live. So I click China, there's China selected, India, the US, and the chart down below is selected. But let's say we wanted to better understand the information by drilling into it. So let's click on project by country. That's going to take me into the card itself. Again, super interactive. You'll notice little animations here and there. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where we can ask Insight Plus, give me some other options. So I'm currently looking at a donut display, but what's a nightingale rose chart, a line chart, funnel, a filled radial, word cloud, tree map, stacked lollipop, Nautilus donut. I love some of these names. So these are just recommendations. You could, of course, put it directly back into edit mode and do whatever you wish, or again, let Tempus make recommendations to you. All right. Other functionality, again, if I click on any one of these segments, perhaps we're interested in what are those 6 projects in China. Well, I don't have to jump out to another report. I can just click directly there, and it now drills down into that data set to tell me, okay, we're looking at everything in China. Here are the projects, and then all of the other data related to that particular set of projects. And there's other functionality here as well. I won't get into it at the moment, but again, this drill down capability is native, built in, no additional work required. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's other options here for sending and exporting. Click here to get access to export to Excel, CSV, print, or to email. And then other functionality that are embedded include things like scheduling or sending now. The schedule as report, very useful. We'd set up the name or the subject. What is the recurrence pattern? Daily, weekly, monthly? When does it go out? And to who does it go out? And should it include a spreadsheet as an attachment where the person can actually look at some of the underlying data if you wish, right? So these are all options available to you. So super useful. There's also history information. There's data lineage related information. And we'll come back in a moment as well that we can then set up alerts on these data as well. All right, so interacting with cards, really simple to do. So we can do this out of a dashboard or back from the overview of all of our cards, we can click on any one of these to then drill down in more detail as necessary. All right. Oh, I should probably jump back into that one. So that insights function I mentioned earlier, some will have it, some won't. This one does. Right now it's waiting. This is probably a newer one where it's waiting to load those data, but others will have that insight information giving you, again, additional insights into the underlying data. A lot of insight floating around. Interacting with dashboards, very similar. There are some really cool things to be aware of. We do support, again, data series filtering. You saw some of that a moment ago when I clicked on a country or an element in one of the reports, it filters the others. Another really cool feature is that you can click and drag horizontally in some cases or vertically in others, and this will apply either a time-based slicer automatically or a drill down directly inside through a filter. So you'll find additional functionality here of clicking between the various controls that'll drive filtering without even using any filters or slicers, which again, you can also add. Right? So you'll find a number of these elements inside of the dashboards. You'll also find inside the dashboards the ability to export to PDF, as well as the ability to export to PowerPoint, which is massively useful. So if you're starting a presentation and wanted to quickly build out a PowerPoint from your dashboard, it's one-click operation, and then you can build from there or integrate with other things you've assembled. Excuse me, one second. Okay, we'll go through that in a moment. Of course, you can also set up auto delivery and deliver now routines from your dashboards as well. And then we also have this drill through capability where you can create a sub dashboard and drill down from a parent level dashboard. And I have one of these assembled. This is literally a screen capture from it where I have a list of projects with different columns that might be calculated and color coded, where I can then click on the project name to drill down into that project and then render maybe the S-curve, the team, the highest consuming activities, the risk level, the project name, whatever it may be, or more information dynamically based on the project that's been selected. All right, so let's again jump back into Insight Plus, and let's go to that global delivery dashboard again. And again, a few things to be aware of. So again, the cross-project filtering. If I click on the US, this is filtering, the various controls that are tied together. There's also zoom in, zoom out functionality here that's really cool. Up top, you'll find options around exporting to PowerPoint, exporting to PDF, as well as scheduling as a report and sending now. So these are the email approaches, and these are the options to quickly get the dashboard into a consumable format that I can then move around, send to others, maybe update as needed or augment with separate data, and then send or use as part of a presentation. And then the other one I will show you is this project dashboard. So this is one where I just assembled a really basic list. Need a little bit of help from someone. Thank you again, Steve, if you're on the line, to do this quickly. But again, you'll see a list of projects. If I click on any of these project names, depending on how you want this designed, this can now drill down into a sub dashboard that renders data just for the selected project. So I'm seeing the big giant, chunky display. This is Aurora phase 15. Here's the current health value. Here's a summary of the various fields for that project. Here's where it sits in the overall pipeline. And then here's its time-phased allocation data. You're seeing some spikes here. I just did a bad job designing the report. But in any case, it's a contextual report based on the selected project name. You could do the same thing with portfolio, program, strategy, again, based on the data elements you have in Tempus, to then design and tell a story for of these data to whoever needs to consume it. Customer, executives, sponsors, you name it. All of that can be addressed. And you'll notice breadcrumbs as well up top. So in this case, I'll just click on the project dashboard to head back up one level. All right. So much more to talk about, but I'm already over my time limit. Let me wrap up our session on Insight Plus, and then we'll take our break. So give me a few more minutes. What I'd like to cover next is report-based alerting. This is the last section that I'll cover today, but you can see there's just so much more, and we'll be doing many more presentations on this. Report-based alerting, this is another really key deliverable of the implementation, which is tell me something. I don't want to go in and look for all these things. They look great, that's awesome, but I want to know when there's an issue. I'm super busy. There's 3 or 4 things that I really care about. The report should tell me, and Insight Plus will absolutely do that. There is a wizard-based process that's available inside of any one of your cards, and there's 3 steps. The first is, what is the business rule? So that's where you would apply the business logic. What is the name of the rule? What metric or calculation am I using? How do I evaluate the data? What is the trigger? So am I comparing 2 fields? Am I just comparing against a value? And then when does the alert go out, and how often does it go out? And will it bother me on weekends or not? Second, what is the messaging that is sent? So it's going to be pre-built with a predefined message, but you can add more information. So you might add in all of the underlying metrics that are used to drive this calculation. So before I even go to the report, it's going to tell me it was this value, now it's this, it increased by this, here's the project, here's the program, and so on. And then, of course, any separate actions that have to be taken. And the third step would be defining who are the people that should be notified. So it might be, me, a backup, or maybe a team of people that should be alerted to this. So this can all be centrally defined inside of any individual card. They are centrally managed. So after you set these up, you can see all of them and remove them if necessary, or modify them in the event that you need to now, again, adjust the business logic because maybe we're getting alerted too frequently or maybe too infrequently. So that's something for you to determine. I'll show you how this is done in Insight Plus really quickly, and then we'll break for a bit. So inside of any one of our cards, up top, you'll notice there's a little bell. And if I click on the bell, this will show me any alerts that are currently configured against this individual card. And you can also access all of your alerts here in the top left. But let's create a new alert. And here's our wizard. So what is our metric? We might look at any item, or we have sums, averages, standard deviation, variance, kurtosis, skewness, if you really want to get into the guts of this. Or we might just say, I want to be alerted if we have a number of projects in China changes by some amount, or changes by a percentage, doesn't change, decreases, or I can do comparisons or inequalities. Is greater than or equal to, is less than, is between, and then of course the options here would change. But let's just say changes or increases by 5. So this is our rule. If it jumps by 5, I need to be alerted. This makes no sense when I'm setting up, but go with me. And then we'd specify when am I going to get alerted, right? So daily, hourly. I mean, this thing can drive you insane if you want. It's up to you. Some of you may like that, others may not. Weekly or monthly, that's questionable too, but again, up to you. We click next. This is now where we would specify the message that's going to go out to who receives this alert. And again, you could insert metrics. You could add in your own text, free form, whatever you wish. And then lastly, who is it going to? This is where I would add the people or the groups of users along with some additional messaging that would be included. And then we would save. And once that is triggered, based on your business logic, those alerts get sent.